What's up, people? What's up, people? What's up, people? It is your boy MM2K here with another episode of Saturday Checkup. All right, this is the forum where, again, we go over the latest and greatest in Stadia news. Sometimes we'll have a guest, but tonight we don't have a guest, but we got a lot of news to cover nonetheless. And this is also the show to where if you're a member to this channel, you get to participate in a live airing where you can ask questions, things like that. It's kind of like an open mic. Anything that you ask will be present on the show. So definitely come on, come all. And the show will air for the public 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but we kind of do these recordings in advance throughout the week. Again, it'll be me today, but we got a lot of news to talk about. First and foremost, let's go over everything. I want to talk about the Austin Creed thing, which was kind of awesome, where he defended Stadia. It was a very brave thing to do, and he did it. He defended Stadia on G4, and they tried to, brush it off, but he did it nonetheless. We want to talk about that. Also want to talk about the Stadia KeyNote. There's been a lot of stuff going on conversational wise, concerns and things like that. And I think these conversations are being started from the pit of our emotions. And we're not looking at things logically before we embellish on certain things. So, let's go over that KeyNote again, because there were some key things, no pun intended, that were mentioned in that KeyNote that we've already seen unravel and come to fruition. We just got to understand that there's going to be some things that will take time to roll out. Now, how they land, that's a different thing. But as far as why things are in XYZ state right now, while these initiatives are in flight, I know as time rolls, it's kind of like watching paint dry, but again, paint has to dry before you try to touch it. So, let's rehash some of these things. Let's talk about them and let's move on. Also, I want to talk about this NFT controversy, right? Like, I'm an old geezer. I may not get everything, but there is a trend that I'm starting to see that concerns me as a gamer that's been doing this for a while. And I just want to make sure that we're not spiting our nose. We're not cutting off our nose to spite our face, because we might actually be doing that with this whole NFT argument. I could be wrong now. Granted, I'm still trying to get myself well versed on some of this, but I've been talking to some people that I've known for a while. They've summed it up for me. I think I have a good grasp on it now. Maybe not every single intricate thing, but you don't always have to get in the weeds and stuff in order to understand it. So I want to talk about this NFT thing. And again, all of these conversations, if you're a member, come join us, share this out, let other members know. We can talk about these things together. I deeply apologize. We got to a late start. It can't be a StadiaDosage live show without some technical difficulties. For some reason, my router just crapped out on me. This is a very good router. I got a Nighthawk. What is this? I forgot what's the name? What's the brand of this? I forgot the brand, but it's a great router. And I had everything set up. I was just kicking back, watching some more of that Xbox documentary, Power On. It's a great documentary. Just waiting for a time to roll with the show. Normally I'm struggling to get everything else together, had everything aligned, and then my router had to crap out on me. So it was one of those things. With that said, we're here. We're going to get things rocking and rolling. All right. But before we get into all that, I do want to bring up another topic, and I want to do it gingerly. Because, and that's the community convo. Oh yeah, and also let me know how the audio levels are. We're doing something a little different with the audio this time around, where we kind of got like a filter that will lower it when I talk, and then it's supposed to come back up to normal levels afterwards. But if it's too wonky, let me know in the chat. All right. But here's what's going on. All right, so over the last, I'm not going to address the shenanigans. I came out with a video yesterday, in the form of a morning tonic. Check it out. I'm pretty much done with the shenanigans. I've seen some things happen, even outside of this, and the antagonistic stuff that's concerned me. But with the shenanigans, I'm not even addressing it anymore. What we do is, when we raise awareness to this stuff, we do what the antagonizers want you to do. They want attention. We got to stop doing that. Even when we say, I'm not paying attention to it, if you retweet it, you're paying attention to it, or you're spreading attention to it. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm done addressing them. You know what I'm saying? If somebody corrects the record on something, I may like the comment, I may not. You know, I may like the comment depending upon what's being said. I don't want to get into these shenanigans anymore, because the shenanigans have become a distraction, and they've taken our eyes off the prize. Like, the prize was the community to be like a lighthouse to gamers that either were heavily, emphatic about the platform, played it a little bit, was okay with it, or were on the fence, but were interested in knowing more about it. The community was supposed to be a lighthouse to those people. And what we had happen was, and I was one of them, so I don't feel there's nothing wrong with it. As we served as a lighthouse, if people tried to steer others off track and not let them make their own decision, we said, whoa, hold on. And if they tried to steer them wrong with misinformation, we would say, oh, hold on. No. Let them come to the lighthouse, let them make their own decisions. Your false information for your own singular objective. Nah, we're not going to do this. We're not going to mislead consumers, right? And, there would be the fight of correct information, a little struggle of correct information. But that was the byproduct of letting everyone come to the lighthouse. Here's somewhere where you can come, where you're going to get Stadia information, good or bad, unfiltered, accurate information. And when some that were originally in that lighthouse, felt a different way, instead of going to another lighthouse, you know what I mean? Decided to sow the sort within the lighthouse. So instead of the battle of information being just a byproduct to the overall theme, which was come here, celebrate, or just simply learn about Stadia, unadulterated, with no fears, with no embarrassment or whatever, you can safely do that here. That no longer became the main objective. The main objective every day was to come and see who said something different than what I believe in, and how can I battle that person, or who likes Stadia because I don't like it anymore, and who's sitting there giving it more praise than I feel it deserves because I'm going to shut them down, or I'm going to, whiz in their cornflakes. The main objective, instead of the battles that you would have here and there, the reasonable battles here and there over information, instead of that becoming a byproduct, that became the product. And that was never the goal. And now it's spilled from the normal shenanigans to where we're seeing it in sectors and realms and voices and things like that I just don't know anymore. I personally, and I've talked about this behind the scenes, I've personally got some decisions to make. And I'm not ready to announce them yet. I'll make them, at the turn of the year 2022. Where I'm leaning right now, this might, it might be talked about, but we'll see. I love this platform. It does a lot for me. I'm sympathetic to those that enjoy it as well, and they want to learn more about it. I want to help be a vehicle to help match people to a valid resource or valid resources, so they can look at this thing and determine if it's for them. Up until the end of 2021, we tried it one way. Starting in 2022, we might completely change that around and try it another way. You know what I mean? With that said, the main point that I mean by community convo is, now some of this was started by what I'll label as unintentional communication that may have missed the mark in some areas. I won't go as far back as the Game Awards. I feel like I've said enough leading up to the Game Awards, where we presented enough information to where if people are really in tune and really listening, and connecting the dots and say, oh, you know what? These guys really talked about the stuff that was happening in the keynote before the keynote happened. Oh, wow. Hey, let's go back and listen to everything they were saying, because however they got, whatever source provided them that information, that was all right. So let's listen and make sure that we got a good grasp on everything. And it's not a pat on the back for us. We were given the information. It was a pat on the back to the source, because the source was accurate. And if you look at all that information we got, we told you, Stadia came out of the ground to make a couple of announcements of we're still here and we're still plugging away, and they're going back underground to make the deals and have the conversations and make the calls that are needed to get everything to be better. And that process is not going to happen overnight. So if you don't see them or hear from them for a while, because this is what they're trying to do, now you know why. They've said it in the way that they say things. They said, don't worry about what we're saying, watch what we do. Right? And that may not be enough for some people. I get it. Some people got to understand that, hey, look, I got to be self-aware. And if this isn't fulfilling my needs, I might have to do what Jack Buser told me. Come back when it does fulfill my needs. But that's why I don't include the Game Awards thing, because like I did in a recording prior in that day, I had no expectations. It's not that I set low expectations. I had no expectations of them doing anything. It just, with all of the facts that have been mounting in front of us, it just didn't make any sense. And just like I predicted, they didn't have anything to say. Not any, well, they might say something, but I'm holding no. Everything laid out as far as I'm concerned. And I think we've been right plenty of times. Like I said, we go all the way back to Cyberpunk being day and date. When the community just went with notions that were put out there, we were one of the ones that said, no, I've been doing this for too long. I know corporate speak when I see it. There's something amiss here. And we think mainly that it's not, that Cyberpunk isn't coming day and date. We believe that's still slotted that way. It's just wiggle room was given just in case for extreme circumstances, but they're definitely working towards it. Oh, no. And so on it continues. But what I'm talking about is the communication around the 12 days of Stadia, where I'll label it, that it missed the mark. And you can have communications as someone that does this too at a corporate level, at a Fortune 500 corporate level, who's done it at a customer service level, who is part of my job to go look at demographics, look at how they change, send out circulars and mailers to the demographics that we have to communicate with, and things like that. What they're doing with this social media team does, I'm familiar with and been doing it for a while. Whatever reasons that it's off the mark, there could be a billion of them. There are times to where corporate will give you ideas and notions and keywords that they want you to have in integral communications. You may push back and you may say, oh, no, that's not going to fly. We want it anyway. All you can do is put it out. You grunt, you grit your teeth because you know that you're going to be the front line as far as the bad feedback. But that's where you go back. You have your moment, because I always did it. Because the people, when I was in charge of those type of things, they never understood the core demographic, and they always got messaging messed up. But we had to be the ones to spoon feed it to people. I would go back and I would say, as I said in meeting such and such on such and such date, I told you. I would literally jot it down. It just got to a point to where I would just start writing in my tablet. I'd stop arguing with them. I would write in my tablet and say, okay, so-and-so told me to do this. And it became so customary that, because I'm a visual person, I'm not a notes taker unless I'm typing on a computer. When my colleagues or the people that I reported to, when they saw me writing in my notebook, it was like clockwork. They would look at me. I would say, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Because, and I would lay out my concerns. They would shut it down. Oh, it's not a big concern. Like I didn't know what I was doing. And then I would just write it in my notebook still. And then as soon as they saw me writing in my notebook, it was like clockwork. Somebody out of the group would say, "Well, hold on. Let's think about this. Let's start brainstorming this." You know what I'm saying? And kicking this around, kicking the tires around on this, and and come up with a formal decision on Thursday. You know what I mean? Because me writing in this always signified that you guys are making a big mistake. You're feeling too big in your britches. It's not going to work, and I'm going to come to your office when it doesn't work, and I'm going to recite. I'm going to make sure. For my evaluation and everything like this, I want to make sure that it's crystal clear who is responsible for pushing this, right? So that's something that happens a lot, right? And then my employees would come back to me because they would be angry as well. So if they're beating me up, I'm gonna come and beat you up. You know what I mean? It's ebb and flow. So you can have that. You can have the normal operators on vacation. This is that time of the season. There's a lot of things that could be happening. So that's why I was very cognizant of when I looked at this and I addressed it, I didn't phrase it to be just da da da. It's I don't try to armchair quarterback reasons. I always stick to cause and effect when it comes to these problems. Prime example, when Stadia had the SG&E letter that went out and it was bad. I didn't try to draw up a reason of why they did it that way because I didn't know. All that mattered was it was bad. Excuse me. Excuse the pig. It was bad, and it was going to cause a bad effect, a very bad effect, systemic bad effect, if they didn't fix it. I didn't get into the armchair quarterbacking of this is what, because my experience tells me better. There could be a multitude of things happening, and I don't want to demagogue. I know y'all, I say that ad nauseum, but that's the exercise of, without any scientific proof, just saying that an entire group is responsible for A, B, or C. I'm totally against demagoguing. So what I did is I don't know who approved this. I don't know who thought it was good. I don't know who pushed this from a senior level or from a VP level. It was just bad. So I just focused on the cause and effect. Right. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to focus on the cause and effect. And what I want to say is that it missed the mark. And for whatever reason it missed the mark, I'm not going to try to drum up the source. What has to be understood is that, or the lesson, hopefully, that's gained from all this, is that regardless of who you're talking to, if that is a direct effect of what occurred, regardless of who your main direct source of your communication is directed to, you have a special breed here within the Stadia community. They don't realize, and they're very siloed in their thinking. And it's becoming more and more paramount to me than ever. And it's from all levels. It's whether you do it and hey, I'm an enthusiast and I just want to be around Stadia content, to those that may routinely do digging and searching for stuff and say, hey, this is what I found. We are very siloed into believing and thinking that the majority are like us. Like the people that here or that are here for this platform are here for this platform for the same reasons I am. So every driplet of news, I mean, like, you can't slide anything past the Stadia community. Every time there's anything Stadia related, someone catches it immediately. I remember talking to Topher, the guy that was behind the Stadia, the fake Mandalorian video. Remember that guy? And I remember talking to him, and he's like, darn it, I didn't expect you guys to be on this so fast. I'm like, yeah, man, the Stadia community is on every single driplet of news out there. It's like, wow. Yeah, so you have a situation where every single person within the Stadia community doesn't see, oh, this might be for this group or that might be for that group. They think that this is one group and the only thing that matters is that we like Stadia. There are no other separating factors. We like Stadia. Some may be angrier than others. That's the, you know what I mean? Or some may be happier than others. That's the extent of how they break this down. And as someone that does data analytics, they got to understand demographics, who understands demographics like you. Now I'm talking, you know, I've been this whole time talking directly to those that are, you know, may have received some ire in the social media team. They don't understand that. There's only one core demographic, and that is you either like the platform or you don't. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. So that's the thinking for the most part. And unfortunately, whenever you do an ad, you have to keep in mind every single segment, even if that ad isn't intended for them. At this phase, you have to do it because the numbers are low. And I get it. The analytics team. So y'all got data that regardless if there's 100 or 100,000 or 100 million, you can slice out the demographic into the appropriate buckets. We're not going to see it that way. Every communication is for us. So the words that are out there have to be to avoid situations like this. Do I agree with the fallout and say that it was fair? I'm not one of those ones that feel that way. But what is what is. So if that did have some correlation, again, I don't want to armchair quarterback. If that did have some correlation, I don't want to talk to people like they're stupid, they don't know how to do their jobs. If that did have some correlation, though, regardless of who crafted the messaging, or if it was something that was pushed from senior management or whatever the case may be, there has to be that check of it's not for these guys, but this vocal minority. Like, even though we know that we get X amount of people every day, and most of those people don't frequent social media as much as these other diehards, we got to keep the diehards in consideration when we draft everything. Because they're the ones that have the most influence on social media. And the reason what made me discuss this, because I didn't even want to talk about it right now. Like, I wanted to be completely void of this whole area, because it's really making me think a certain way about a lot of things. But I thought it was important because, and it's something I threw in last minute, because I've been watching the Power On thing from Xbox, the Xbox documentary. And I urge everybody within the Stadia community to watch it if you haven't watched it. A lot of the stuff that we've been preaching and talking about here on StadiaDosage that people just blew off and just didn't think it was important has been recited there. Just like the battle for the living room and things like stuff like that. You start to see the origins of the things that I've been talking about, and it's very nostalgic for me because it's reliving moments that I remember. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't have to Google it. Somebody doesn't have to tell me about it and caveat it. That's the great thing about being there. Like, I don't get the caveated version. I get the full-throated version of what happened there, and this is bringing it back up, and it's nostalgic for me. But one of the things that is great about what's being spoke about is, particularly in episode 3, where they talk about understanding that even though XYZ are your goals, you have this front line of people that are so skeptic about everything that you do that they're ready to curb stomp it and hate on it. You know, it's the crab in the barrel mentality. Well, that's probably not the best way to describe it, but there's some people that love to hate stuff. So you always got to be cognizant of that front line of people. They're hard to satisfy and they're always angry. They're hard to reason with. There is no reasoning with them. There simply is, this better have all this, and they throw in unrealistic expectations just because. This better have all of this, or I got 1,000 things to critique. And you can't ignore those people because unfortunately they're the most vocal on social media. So you got to find a way to navigate through the waters and keep them at bay. And you keep them at bay by making sure your messages, I don't know what you want to call it, have the angry troll, they passed the angry troll test or whatever. People may say I'm mean for that. You're calling people that are reasonably upset about things angry, whatever you want to call it. You want to call it the staunchest critic test, the SCT. It has to pass the SCT. If it doesn't pass the SCT, you run a high risk, depending upon what it is. And again, with a group like the Stadia community, you're going to run a big risk because any small thing can be interpreted to the biggest output. Like a lot of these expectations that people drew, like the gifting thing, and I read that and I didn't think that at all. Like I get it at the I've been doing this for too long and been doing too much research. Stadia you don't follow subliminals when it comes to Stadia. You just don't. Don't believe something is until you either see it or they directly say it. This is not Xbox, where Xbox through Game Pass account, they like to do subliminals. Don't take what they're saying subliminally. This is not Xbox. So I never looked at that and said, oh, there's gifting. There is not gifting until you see gifting on the app and someone says, oh, I can now gift on the app. Or they specifically say, enjoy gifting now. That's the problem that we run into, is that I think there's a lot of people that come from other areas or just have little driblets of experience with other areas, and they take the things that they do there and say, oh, well, this must be what you mean because this is what they would mean over there. It's just that you're in the cloud. No. Stadia is completely different. And you make a mistake, whether you're just an enthusiast that just wants to come across content, or if you're one of us that deep dives into stuff, you step on the bear trap every single time, knowingly, when you believe in subliminals from Stadia. There's nothing wrong with gossiping and theorizing and stuff as long as you don't get too attached to it. It's just ish talking, as we say, around the way. But every time you look at that bear trap and you step on it and expect a different result, and sometimes I gotta look at you, bend my head to the side, and I gotta say, Jesus Christ. There are no subliminals with Stadia. You'll either see it or they'll say it straight up. I learned that months ago, several months ago. So again, I'm not enraged because I had this specific outcome. And again, this is a message that we've been sending on this channel for a while. That's why I said, something's not working. So we got to recalibrate some things because I want to be part of efforts where we pivot off of facts. We use precedent as a teaching guide. We know what we don't know because that helps us to understand where we have to dig. But we don't let our emotions dictate the path that we take. And we want to do all those things because we want to set people on the right path who are either enthusiastic about the platform, they deal with the platform at some juncture and they're okay with it, or they simply are on the fence and they want to know more about it. Those things that I just described, I feel like are the best ways to steer those people to the lighthouse to help them make their decision. Not make the decision for them, but bring them to the lighthouse so they have everything in front of them that they need to make that decision. Those are the efforts that I want to be a part of. So that's why we gotta think of something different. But at the end of the day, my message for all involved is there are no subliminals with Stadia. I feel like this is something that should be known by now. And I think this is something that should be cascaded. But that's my thoughts. Secondly, when it comes to that communication, there always has to be an account of the diehards. Because the diehards always think that every single message is for them. Give me 1 second, hold on. So, those are my thoughts over that period, and what made me, again, what inspired me, and I talked about it a little bit longer than I really wanted to. And it might ruffle some feathers, but you know what else is new. But the reason that I brought this all up was to say, not to condemn anybody on any side of this, or to say anybody is stupid and you should have known, or to swag the finger and say you're a horrible person or you're a horrible people. Hold on 1 second. Perfect. To say you guys are horrible people because you had these expectations. No, it's not that. It's to always, as always, provide food for thought But in addition, I think something that'll be beneficial to everybody is that conversation that they're having on the Power On documentary for Xbox. You can watch it on YouTube. Just simply type in Power On Xbox. You'll see all 6 parts. Watch them all. Episode 3 is really the one where they talk about the communication and how they've had to navigate around the diehards. So I think because the diehards are there, they are the way that they are, and they're very unique in our community or in the Stadia community because they're unique because they feel like and I get it. They feel like every single communication is catered to me. I'm a AAA lover, but if you drop Young Souls out here, what you think I'm gonna like Young Souls? What the heck is wrong with you? You know what I mean? That's how they look at things, because they feel like that the group is so small that everybody's like them. And another thing that helps, that kind of contributes to that thought process, is the fact that the vocal members of the community are on Twitter or whatever social media platform, and they believe erroneously that the majority of the Stadia gamers are there. Shout out to Jack Deslip. We one of the smartest people I ever met on this planet. We do a show with him monthly, and he extrapolates and puts that out on a regular basis. Great stuff. Jack surmised, I believe, in one of the episodes of the Number Show for Stadia, that the active user base may float around somewhere, and I apologize if I get this wrong, but I think he said they float around somewhere between 200 and 500,000, the monthly active user base, right? And if that's true, that's not a whole heck of a lot, but it's not horrible for a 1% business, right? Not horrible for a 1% business. And especially if you got a significant amount of them on Stadia Pro, it's not horrible. Now, with that said, if you have a base of 200 to 500,000, a monthly active user base, meaning people are coming on and people are purging all the time. Maybe sometimes, these are disenfranchised gamers. These may be casual gamers who, reasonably don't play for a whole month. There's times I've gone almost 2 weeks without playing. And I make Stadia content. So I can imagine that there are a great number of people that may not pick up for a whole month, or people that may leave, or as those people leave, more people come on. So it just averages out between those two numbers. Right. The average Stadia pickup is around 1,000 new engagements a day. So that would be 365,000 a year, right? If you combine all of our social media efforts, even if you were going to assume that none of them were duplicated, like the same people that are on Twitter are not the same people on Reddit, you know what I'm saying? Or not the same people on Facebook and all. If you were to combine all of those numbers together, they don't even equal 1 year's worth of activity on Stadia. Which again, Stadia averages, from numbers that I've seen, around 1,000 new engagements a day. That equals 365,000. Again, not a whole heck of a lot when you're talking about consoles that are doing anywhere between 7 to 20 million a year for the premier consoles. But again, this is a 1% business. Okay. Or less than a 1% business, excuse me. Let me get that right. So what I'm basically trying to say is that and particularly with both Twitter and Reddit. Okay, so we got 115,000 people on Reddit. Somebody might put a post out there, I'm angry about XYZ. And there might be, let's say 500 people max, maybe a little bit higher, that may upvote that. That still doesn't equal one day's worth of engagement for Stadia. So we're aloof and we live in this vision and this silo where we think that because of the people that we've met and the relationships that we've built on social media, and 40 or 50 people might like a tweet where somebody's really upset about something, that speaks for the entire community. Meanwhile, Stadia has data, actual numbers in their hands that says otherwise. But we live in such a bubble, we don't realize that. So another thing to realize is that, yes, you are going to have groups of people that don't like things. But don't fall under the belief that we, the diehards, the people look, this is a platform that is for disenfranchised casuals. Not even the average casual. The average casual isn't on Twitter talking about video games. So we're talking about a niche group of people that normally don't be on social media. They just play the games that are on the platform and they go about their business and live their lives. So if the bigger group of that sector don't be on social media, why do we think the majority of Stadia gamers are on social media and they represent our thoughts? We're diehards. That's reasonably how to look at it. So I think the Power On series is a great series that helps bring this all home for all sides. I highly recommend that people watch it. Because things have gotten to a fever pitch, and it's really made me see some things in a different light. And it's may lead to some significant changes here. So definitely, we'll talk about that in the appropriate times. But I wanted to bring that up, and again, I really recommend anybody to check that out. Again, if you're watching this, thank you very much. We appreciate it. If you're a member watching this, definitely drop us a question in here. If you have any questions or comments or concerns regarding anything that we're talking about, let's bring it up. All right, before I got into all that though, here's what I do want to do. Let me show you something. Hold on. I got to do this right. Okay, that's wrong. Hold on. Now, why would it do that? Okay, all right, hold on. We have to fix this. Main property. All right. Okay, now I can show you. All right, so this is a tweet from my good brother Clive E. Linden. He says, play Stadia? Look, it's okay not to have an opinion either way, but come on, who you kidding? I know you had a favorite Stadia game. What is it? Stop being apathetic and vote now. Then watch the live show on New Year's Eve, 8 p.m. UK. Vote now. And here it goes. Gives you the link to vote now to the Stadia Awards show. Let's click on this and see where it takes us. Okay, the Stadia Community Awards. And then if you click here, it'll take you to the document where you can vote. This is great. This really gives the community a voice. I really hope that everybody partakes in this. We've already had a lot of people participate. I'm honored that Clive, and this is Clive driving this, and I'm honored to be helping my good brother out We got some special guest appearances and things of that nature. So definitely check it out. Let's support Clive in this valiant effort and try to give you a voice in the community and help spread awareness of that we do play these games and what our favorite games are for the year. So shout out to Clive for that. Also, I want to remind people, check us out on pntsnetwork.com. We have regular articles on Stadia. Our most recent one is, talking about that NPD litmus that should help people understand that, again, what I was talking about so much before. This is not a platform that, is solely represented by us talking heads on Twitter or on YouTube. There's, we're just the tip of the iceberg. The average consumer is elsewhere. You know what I mean? And it helps you understand why Stadia's approach may be the way that it is, because it looks like it's reaching to a particular type of gamer. It outlines it in the story. It's a good deep dive into what is likely the Stadia strategy and why they continue to see growth. Definitely check it out. Okay. All right. So with that said, we did the community convo conversation. Let's now talk about Austin Creed and his awesome defending of the Stadia platform. In order to do that, let's go here. This is it. So I want to pause this and I want to play this for you guys, and I'm going to shut up so you guys can hear the conversation.
I just made a fort out of them. Fort Zooms. Yeah, don't, if you need a hole up there, just throw yourself to the
Can I be the weird person that gives Stadia love?
Sure.
I like Stadia. I know that sometimes it doesn't work as well as you want it to, but when it works, it's very fun.
That's cyberpunk in a nutshell.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, no, now I know what it's like when someone gives Stadia love. That's what it feels like.
I've had many enjoyable experiences with friends that don't play games, and I go, here, just get this controller and jump on this webpage and you can play this random game with me. It's nothing like super in-depth. It's nothing crazy, but it has given me good times with friends, and so I have to give it love for that.
All right. I just made a fort.
Great stuff to hear from Austin Creed. So for those of you that are not familiar with Mr. Creed, Austin was one of the hosting members of the Good Stuff campaign. Remember that? Where he was playing games and doing a whole bunch of live events with the Stadia community. Was awesome stuff. I think that's where they wrote out Play Outcasters. We've seen people in the Stadia community that was part of that effort as well. It was great stuff. And so he already has favor with the community, and he has experience with the platform. So, I mean, it's great that he has that experience with the platform, and he was able to give it his kudos early on, even though the general consensus with people like those that are on G4 is, because you heard that kind of gasp that, when he said, can I be the weird person that gives Stadia love? You heard that, and I would recommend. I would guarantee that most people that feel that way have not spent a lot of time with the platform. Now, I didn't get a chance to hear this segment because I don't have G4 TV locally on my subscription service. I have Hulu Plus. And I would love to get Hulu, so Disney, make it happen. Let's get G4 back in here. Come on. It would be would it be awesome to you guys? I don't know. I had to pull myself back on this. Would you guys like for G4 to be bought out by Disney? Would that be a cool thing or no? I mean, they would have the bread, but Would they be allowed to be G4? I don't know. Maybe they could get Olivia Munn back. I don't know. Is her acting career, is that percolating the way that she wanted to? But no, Olivia Munn, what is she on? She's on something. Kevin Pereira, I think he's like partially back. Get Morgan Webb back. Get all the old folks back. Kevin Pereira is one of the funniest people on the planet. When he was doing his show, what was it called? Office Space or whatever on YouTube. It was getting banned every day because he was always playing audio and stuff that he wasn't supposed to play. He just didn't care. But it was the most hilarious show on YouTube. I was addicted to it when I discovered it. I was addicted to it. I love that show. I would like to see people like him back, and I would like to see them compensated. That's why I was thinking about Disney, buying G4, putting the investment into it, and getting great talent like Kevin and funny people like that to carry the mantle, or regain the mantle, or whatever. Because I think we need a G4. I think we need a TV station that focuses on games. I would love to see it. I gotta wait for it, but I'm not abandoning Hulu Plus just yet. So I gotta see Hulu Plus get it. You know what I mean? But with that said, I'm imagining that this conversation was made up, designed in a way where they were talking about hardware that didn't make it, and Stadia must have came up in that conversation, and it disappoints me when I see smart people like Adam Sessler, particularly, who it may not be the thing for them. Like mobile gaming may not be the thing for him. But you can see the build up to the allure. Like cloud gaming is the future. And Stadia provides you the best balanced way to engage cloud gaming. They give you the most options on how to play. They give you great fidelity and performance, and they give you a great economical way to interact with the platform without going for broke. I mean, it's the best balance across the board, and you get great titles. You get multiple ways to engage those great titles. I mean, it's a platform that I think if it had any other name, it would be celebrated. Like if this was Amazon, like if you took Amazon and slapped Google on the Amazon, you slapped Amazon's name on the Stadia, I don't think that you would have the same issue. It's just that Google is just one of those companies that people love to hate. Because everybody doesn't interact with Google at a product level, like how they do with Amazon. Oh yeah, Amazon's shady, but you don't hear this uproar with Amazon. Amazon's done some shady stuff. I think they have done some of the most shadiest things out there, right? But everybody orders from Amazon. You get what you want in 2 days, so it's just like sweep it under the rug. It's kind of like that whole Activision thing, where we know that Activision is a worse company than EA. We know it. I mean, Bobby Kotick, come on. The guy that wanted to make you pay for cutscenes? Like, come on. But because they do Call of Duty, we're going to sweep that under the rug and we're going to give the award to EA. You know what I mean? It's like kind of it's one of those things. And Google, besides their search engine, you don't deal with on a regular basis. And the search engine, with today's society, it's a right. It's not a privilege. It's a right for me to be able to Google stuff. So who cares if they're behind it? And again, they don't have that product engagement where they can get their popsicle containers or gamers, they get their joystick in 2 days without having to peel their smelly bodies from the couch. But if Stadia had Amazon sticker on it, it would be so praised. Oh, Xbox? Oh my God. Let's just say if Xbox did not have Game Pass attached to it, but it had Microsoft's logo on it and the same games that Stadia has, it would be so appraised, and people would just simply say, I can't wait till Xbox to fuse Game Pass on this, but until then, this is still great. Because it's in the early years, right? So it's just amazing, and Google just, they're in a bad spot when it comes to gaming. But that's why, and Microsoft was in the same bad spot. That's why I hope everybody watches episode 3 of Power On, because Xbox had to realize that the average way that you communicate under the Microsoft blueprint doesn't work for gaming. We got to be completely different. They were separate from Microsoft, and because they were separate from Microsoft, yeah, there were some financially irresponsible things that happened. I get that part where Google wants to avoid that. But you can't too much infuse gaming in the typical Google way. That doesn't help. There's a lot of unfair things happening, but when you slap on top of it that you communicate the way that you do with other Google products, the lack of consistent transparency or knowing what's coming down the road, that only compounds the matter. So I think what has to happen is we gotta watch episode 3. And see, here's another thing too, that I think the corporate brass of Google, not necessarily stated, because this is all a corporate Google brass thing. This is because it has the Google water stamp all over it, watermark all over it. Here's what I hope the corporate brass at Google understands: that even though Microsoft as a company wasn't popular with the game world, Bill Gates was revered everywhere. Bill Gates was popular everywhere. So having Bill Gates, one of the richest people on the planet, come and talk about games, even though it's on behalf of Microsoft, the unpopular company, that kind of neutralized the heartburn people got in knowing that Microsoft was doing something. Knowing that Bill Gates, one of the biggest people, one of the most revered people in the world, despite Microsoft, the company that he ran and built, was completely disliked. He was liked. There is no synonymous figure like that at Google. Opposite of Jack Buser. And for some reason, they did not put Jack on stage. Like, the closest thing that they had to a Bill Gates or Peter Moore, a likable figure that spoke the language that gamers spoke, was Jack Buser. And I feel like he was underutilized. I know he's doing different things now, but to have him come out, but he has familiarity with Stadia. To have him come out every once a quarter and talk about Stadia, could be a help, because he has that lineage of PlayStation and everything, and he just knows how to talk to gamers. So that's another thing that has to be taken into consideration. That the Google way is a hindrance. It is a hindrance, and this is above the frontline people, the social media people. This is stuff for corporate, and even Microsoft, with someone that again was revered on the stage, that thought, what's wrong with the Microsoft brand? Even they understood our normal corporate way of doing things for the gaming sector. It's like water and oil. It just doesn't mix. So hopefully that gets learned. And again, that's a corporate thing. I'm not directing this at the social media people, because they don't just get to sit there and say, this is what we want to talk about, so let's do it. That's not what happens. It's not how it works. Trust me. All right. That's why I responded the way that I did. In the middle of all this, there's so many cogs in that wheel, people just don't realize it. And I understand that from a management level. Sitting with the board on the most extreme situations, dealing with PR and all other stuff. That's not how this works. Another thing I want to talk about this is that the guy that wrote this article, Robert DeFelice, there's an article behind this. This is Xavier Woods, is that weird guy that gives love to Stadia via G4 TV Xplay. There's an article behind this, and the article, I don't see it anymore, which is weird. Did he take it down? I can't find my response either. Maybe this isn't the tweet that I responded to. Let me see if I can find it. Here, let me go back. Let me see if I can find my response. He wrote an article about it, and the article was less than flattering about Stadia, but I mean, that's okay, because again, when you have so many voices, and this is a wrestling publication at that, but when you have so many voices that come out and say, oh, this is the horrible and this is a failure, and everybody's saying it, I mean, if it's not really your cup of tea and you reference it, you're going with the flow. You're like, hold on, all these journalists and all these people with credentials are saying this about it. That must be the case, right? Here we go. So they ran with it in the article. I found it. This is the article by Robert DeFelice, and it's in Fightful.com. And again, it's regurgitating the stuff that that's out there by credible sources, unfortunately. So I don't fault Robert for that. But again, in examining recent events that deals with the Stadia community, I've said I wanted to, be part of better, right? Normally where I would have ignored this because I looked at it and would have said, well, this guy doesn't know any better. So it's not even worth mentioning or trying to correct a record. This is for a wrestling magazine. So they're not doing anything malicious. Let's move on. Instead of doing that, I said, here's an opportunity to extend an olive branch, regardless of what the circumstances are, because we don't know, he could play games. So I responded, I said, I love Xplay. at Austin Creeds and Adam Sessler. Shout out to AC for the love. The platform is great for a target audience in these early years. Feel like that often gets lost in translation by media. Maybe tap community for better understanding. Some great resources. Right? And I left them with the Dosage Community Digest. He actually he retweeted it. He liked it. Look at that. He liked it. Look at Pete in there too. and he retweeted it. You know what I mean? So, three things. Number one, shout out to Austin Creed for being brave enough to do that. That was brave of him to do that. And we appreciate that he does that because he put a lot of truth behind that. But secondly, I think what we did here is testament to we can extend olive branches that people will appreciate. Now Felice may look at this and say, okay, well, this ain't for me. I'm not interested in it, but I see there's a community behind it. So maybe there's more than meets the eye. And he retweeted it, which was great. And also that we can do better and benefit of this product, right? We can avoid all of the annoyances and the muck and the hate and the people that are angry and want to. We can avoid all that and just do better and extend an olive branch. That might be our best strategy moving forward. Okay. Just avoiding the muck and the controversy and the drama, and extend olive branches where we can. Yeah, I think it's time to start arguing. It may even be time to unless in many cases, not even worry too much about correcting the record in certain ways. Let's extend an olive branch. Even if you see, like, for instance, our buddy, our infamous Tom Warren, you see him put something out there extending olive. This is a response. Like, let's praise them for what they are good at. Say, hey, I love your work on XYZ. I just feel that the explanation of this, that, and the other may be a little bit off. Here's a prime example: a group of people that use the platform day in and day out. Otherwise, that would contest otherwise. Some great sources. Check them out. You know what I mean? And put a list of content creators out there. I think that's a great thing to do. So, very interesting segment. I thought it was cool, and I appreciated it for what he done. All right. With that said, let's move on to the next thing. Stadia KeyNote. Revisit. I've seen some conversations on social media over concerns, and a lot of those concerns could be answered by referencing the KeyNote. Now, I get it. The end effects of the KeyNote may feel like, stirring molasses, turning around the Titanic. But that's just the time that it takes. So let's go over the KeyNote again. All right, the KeyNote happened, when was that? Oh, I can't remember. July 2021. And when you look at the KeyNote, the synopsis that could be pulled from that is Stadia is increasing its footprint in gaming for the long run. It got to build to that point, but that's what they're looking to do. They're looking to ramp things up. They want to make the platform more attractive for partners, and that's courtesy of the added authority or the added attention that they've been given via what do you call it? ABC company, the parent company of Google, and how the business has been elevated to that stature. And they're going to they want to do that by making the dev tools easier to bring more games. So when we look at partner enhancements, some things that they talked about that were problematic at first is they said over the past year and a half, the back end improved drastically. So they've made some important improvements to help developers get games over, but they realized that they still needed to do more. And they did though help developers get even more freedom. Well, this is the best way to describe it is to read to you the quote from Lucas Dosage. He is IO Interactive's operations manager. Here's what he had to say about the improvements only up until July. Over the past year and a half, the backend improved drastically, allowing for even more freedom of approach and flexibility, which is what every publisher and developer needs. Yeah, Lucas Dosage of IO Interactive, operations manager. So some of the initiatives that they're looking at is 70% engagement kickback for Stadia Pro devs. So we know about that. 70% of the Stadia Pro revenue is going to go into a pool, and it's going to be split amongst the people that have games in Stadia Pro, and they'll be rewarded among engagements. Now, this was a controversial thing because, and even I was confused on this, because we thought this was an incentive based upon, on top of them giving additional monies to people to put the game in Stadia Pro. And no, this is replacing it. And people were upset. Oh, this is performance-based incentivizing and this, that, and this is horrible. This is incentive-based. This is performance-based incentivizing for the pro program. This isn't, oh, I can't buy your title outright type of thing. And no game goes into Stadia Pro unless the developer wants it to go in Stadia Pro. So even though we may have misunderstood what effect this new model would have on the compensation, it was another one of those things where people were trying to over dramatize it and make it seem like it was something horrible that we were pinning developers in a box. Developers have to sign up for Stadia Pro. Or they can say, no, I'm just going to make my game available on your platform. Right? There were rumors, though, that Stadia was switching the business model on people unwillingly or whatever. And to that I say, there is no evidence that's been provided to that. But let's just say in words, let's play devil's advocate and say that it did happen. Guess what you do? I don't want my game on Stadia Pro. I'm not putting my game on Stadia Pro anymore. Thank you for compensating me the way that you did. I'm done. I'm yanking my game from Stadia Pro. There's also a new 85-15 split for those a la carte purchases. So it was spoke about for many years that Google is stubborn and anything that they sell was a hardcore 70-30, right? And Google don't care that much about Stadia. This is where people don't understand. But you heard this. Google don't care that much about Stadia, so why would they change anything? They're not doing anything significant for them. This is significant. This decision was made well before the whole Fortnite and Apple lawsuit, right? It's so important for them to start getting these games on the platform that they went across a typical business model and moved to an 85-15 split. I think that is the most underrated thing through all of this. That you don't do this for a platform that you don't care about. It's like, well, if we're going to wind this thing down or whatever, we got to reaccumulate some money back. You know what I'm saying? So why would we do an 85-15 split on something that we're rolling out? We're doing this because we believe that if we get you to keep coming, that it's going to create some more buzz long term, right? You don't do this. You don't cut down your revenue if you're winding things down. Why do that? If you're only going off the contracts that are already made, the contracts are already made. Give them their 70, you keep your 30. But no, you do stuff like this for systemic interaction, partnering, and growth. And to go against that hard line 30%, that's big for Google. I mean, that's the biggest antithesis to any approach of winding down or not caring. It just doesn't add up to the rhetoric. I think that the 85-15 split, let's put it up here. Let's because some people need visual aid. Hold on. New Stadia 85-15 split. Let's put it up here on the screen, because some people again need visual components. The most underrated component of this is the new Stadia 85-15 split. That kills any notion that they don't care. It murders it, destroys it. Give me 1 second, y'all. 1 second. You don't make improvisions that are synonymous with long-term systemic growth if you're winding things down. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't happen. Trust me, somebody that's been doing this for 25 plus years, it doesn't happen. Now, we can argue and we can debate on how this will land. Will this work? Will this produce the outcome that they're looking for, what they desire? That's a different conversation. But the motif that they are looking to wind things down or they don't care is completely obliterated by the fact that they again went back on one of their most staunchest things, which was the 70-30 split, period. Like normally, when companies are up for RFP or they're deciding whether they're going to retain your business or not, and so new contracts and stuff come up. Normally, when businesses go up for RFP, you budge a little bit, especially if the business is important. But Google over the years have said, no, we're not budging. It's 70-30. Just like Apple used to do the same thing. It's 70-30. And that's common because in retail, it's 70-30. It is so important to Google that they get more activity on this to meet the gamer demand, that they went against something that they don't even do for their most successful, that they haven't done for their most successful business up until now. Unbelievable. And you know what? I failed to hit that part home. But after revisiting this, after seeing some recent conversations, it really hit me like, bow. And maybe because the conversations weren't, well, yes, they were. They were talking about, they were winding down and state, and Google just doesn't care, you know. But that obliterates that. Now, again, we can have conversations about how it's going to land. But we're a long way from being able to measure that, because you're not going to start seeing the results of this, I would feel, until like latter part of 2022, definitely going into the big year, which I say is 2023. And I've been saying the big year is 2023 for all these cloud platforms, hence why they said that this 85-15 split is in effect until October 1st, 2023. So they're hoping that all this business restructuring that they're doing, all these new incentives, will help spur the growth of products that come over to Stadia, and then they can just operate as normal in 2023, because that's when they're really expecting things to go big. All of these platforms are. And there's a reason why I said 2023. Why did I say 2023? Because, here, let me give you guys a secret. Let me tell you guys a secret of why I said 2023. We've talked about, now a lot of this may be confusing and it may seem like that it contradicts each other, but it doesn't. We talked about how businesses have to do different things depending upon the best foot forward for them. But what businesses also like to do is they like to build a structure within from the base based upon things that they see that are successful from other regions. So even though the way they navigate their lane to their consumers may be different from everybody else, and they might provide something different, there are some core fundamental things that they do from the ground up that are done equivocally throughout their business line. Okay. So to give you an example of that, Stadia may not communicate the way that an Xbox communicates, because the people that they're reaching are different. But at its core, what Stadia wants to do is make sure that they are ready, and they built their product to be ready to land and hit, premier stage status or start to roll in that direction heavily at the same time the competition is. So they're gearing up. So they realize that a big telling year for them is 2023. They're not going to say, oh, well, our year is going to be 2022 or our year is going to be. They realize that, hey, because of the way the trajectory of this business, because of the climate surrounding it and the projections and all the financial stuff involved here, we got to be ready by 2023, like everybody else, to be doing some big stuff. Even though this is the early years, even though we're not expected to get close to a 6, 7, 8% business till 2027, 2023 is pivotal for us to even get there. It's an important milestone. So even though things may differ on your delivery, the core structural things that you build to are the same. That's how it works in the Fortune 500 world. So the reason why I said 2023 was a big deal is that you look at all the moves that Microsoft has made, even before they bought Bethesda. You look at the companies that they bought. You looked at the things that they were saying. You look at projects, the big projects, when they would be ready. And then the icing on the cake is you look at the fact that they were giving Game Pass away for free. People could load up on Game Pass all the way up until 2023. When you look at all that, everything said 2023, 2023. Why is 2023 so big? There must be some analytics behind the scenes that says that in order for them to get to another pivotal point, a big milestone is 2023. Everything is loading up for Microsoft at 2023. And as you look at each individual company, now you're starting to see the same thing. Walmart is talking about getting in. Verizon's talking about getting in. Amazon's in, all this other stuff. And when you look at their trajectory and the things that they're offering, you didn't get super huge stuff in 2019. Not really in 2020. Not so much in 2021. Yet, GFN dropped the new business line, but I don't think that's their big whoop to do thing. I think that was just helping them progress things along, right? You listen to the dialogue that it's all similar. This is not a premier business. We're not looking, this is not, the cloud gaming is only good for this, not by some. Others are saying, look, you're going to come and look at this early on and realize that it's not as, as off, it doesn't have the offerings of the bigger platforms, right? So you may have to come back later. All this downplaying talk right now in these early years, we're talking about it's going to be like that for years to come. The way that they're just sculpting their communications, the stuff that you've seen from Microsoft, and the trajectory of these other platforms that are getting into this, everything points to 2023. And that's why I've always said 2023. I just put on my data analyst cap. And I've been talking 2023. You follow my old content. I've been talking about 2023 since 2018. And lo and behold, 2023 is the year, not only of all this other stuff, but the year that Stadia is lifting the cap on this 80-15 split, and they're going to 70-30. Why? Because they must have some big things, some big important things lined up for holiday 2023. And they want to capitalize on that. They hope that they can build up the fervor and the activity and the product up until holiday season 2023. Amazing stuff. And again, it's not symbolic of somebody that's looking to wind down or somebody that doesn't care. It may be a hard pill to swallow for many that cloud gaming altogether is not going to be your tell-all be-all platform. You may have to supplement it. You may have to just come back to it at a later time. But it doesn't mean that the platform isn't making progress. It just isn't making the progress that is good for you. And you got to go to where, you're happy. I get it. But they've announced that. And Jack Buse's foresight, he predicted that early on. Some of us are just too stubborn to listen. So let's continue on with some more stuff for devs. They're simplifying the development tools, the test hub, the decoupling, separation of the development process, engine improvements. They're making development easier to engage in across all screens, direct launches from the dev tools. I've heard a lot. I think, I talked about last week sometime that one of the things, like I may feel a certain way about things that are said by Jez Gordon of Windows Central, but one of the things that I feel like he was spot on about is that people talked about the issues that they had developing for Google Stadia. And one of the complicated things that they talked about was lining everything up on the multiple screens. I've actually heard that behind the scenes. Now, I laughed it off because one developer, I think it was a developer for Football Manager. I can put it out there now. I've never talked about this. This was one of the behind the scene things, but the developer for Football Manager had put something out there and said that she didn't like developing for Google Stadia because one of the more irritating things for her was making sure that everything lined up on every single screen. And for the developers of Football Manager, for some reason, that just was that was off-putting to them. And I said, nobody else is complaining about that. And maybe nobody else is complaining. They have internal processes to where they can deal with that a lot better than developers of Football Manager. But for some reason, people at Football Manager cited that as one of the major reasons why they didn't like developing for the platform. So that's one of the things that Stadia did work towards, is that, again, making development easier to engage across all screens with the direct launch from the dev tools while they're testing. The new cloud native tools, Test Hub, combining testing and playing seamlessly, so you can go from your QA region to your production region. So industry terms. You go from QA to production like that, right? The Stadia technical requirements. Now, this might be a controversial thing. It's part of a lot of discussion as of late. And some people may not, including myself, may not know what to make of this. But the Stadia technical requirements being revamped for smoother certification, right? And also the 4K HDR surround sound STR was removed. The 4K HDR and surround sound STRs were removed, along with the internal review board they implemented to help deal with STRs and the ability to test your game against the current STRs without using the SDK. So the biggest out of that is the Stadia technical requirements, meaning these are certain things, litmuses, that have to be at XYZ level or your game gets rejected after development. This has happened already, that technical requirements were removed. So there was a technical requirement that there had to be 4K. There had to be an HDR component. There had to be surround sound. All those were removed to help get more games on the platform because they felt like that was bogged, because the developers were saying, this is getting too cumbersome and this is why we don't want to develop. I mean, yeah, after our initial contracts and after dealing with this, we are not going to develop for you any further, right? You know what I mean? Like, once we meet our obligations, you can forget it. So Stadia had a decision to make, and they said, okay, we got to keep this business moving, because think about it this way, guys. Stadia does not have any bargaining chips to go to any of these developers and say, you know what? If you don't follow these STRs, these technical requirements, then we're just going to continue to reject your things until you get it right. They're going to say, fine. It'll just come whenever. They don't have enough in their lineup to say that. So now they're in a situation where get the lineup, to get the thing that people request the most, they have to ease up and allow for, unfortunately, the lesser effort to come through. I think We saw it with Outriders. We saw it with Ark. Even in some games where still plays good, we're seeing mind-boggling components, like Grime not releasing with 4K. That's mind-boggling to me, especially when it appears that you helped to fund this game. Young Souls not having 4K. That's mind-boggling to me. And then now we're seeing the Ubisoft games, which I get it, they're your biggest supporter and you definitely got to work with them. But now we're seeing the Ubisoft games release at 1030. I mean, at 30 frames per second. You know, so I think you were running into a situation where the Stadia say this game comes day and date. Or it comes later, meaning these STRs. And I think what they looked at per their data is they were not in a position to enforce these STRs and risk these games not coming day and date or coming at XYZ scheduled time because the prior STRs couldn't be met. They're not at that position yet. And again, it's not something to where Stadia's like, we don't care. They had a tough decision to make. It's either the games don't come or they come late. And late could be forever late. Or they come on time, but maybe they don't have the components that please everybody. That's a tough decision to make. Because there is no other decision. You don't have the bargaining power. You're not Xbox, you're not PlayStation. You don't have the bargaining power to do anything else. Not at this moment. To help alleviate that, I think what they should do though is they have to get more engineers that I feel like can do something like do a queue lock. Like, okay, if the best you can do is 30 frames per second, 4K, fine. We'll take it from there. You know what I mean? And so, like, even if you got to do something like, okay, let's try to get this at 4K 60, a 4K mode and a 60 mode, or an upscaled 4K 60 mode. Let's try to get this at launch. Or, okay, maybe you do release it at 1080p in 4K 30 at launch. But because you're looking at the data and you realize that the majority of the people don't mind 30 frames per second. It's a smaller fraction that is in an uproar about it. But we can't forget them. So we got our special set of technicians that will guarantee that the 4K and the 60 modes come within 2 weeks of launch. That you can't beat with a stick, because I think now what Stadia has done is it's created a dynamic to where it's turned people like me around to where I can wait now. You talk to me in 2020, oh, I couldn't wait. No, it's got to be day and date or I'm getting it somewhere else. No, I'll wait, because I realize if I got it somewhere else and I try to play it somewhere else, it just sits. Like when Cyberpunk 2077 first released for me, it was too hideous. Like I was one of the ones, and another content creator was one of the ones where we were looking at this on Stadia and we were like, I mean, it's getting all this acclaim because of what's going on with the consoles, but it ain't looking too great here for the first few days. So what I did is I said, nah, I got to get this for PC. And I got it for PC. I've played it twice on PC. Twice. It just sits. Because I want to play it on Stadia. So after Cyberpunk 2077, the game that I vowed had to be day and date on the platform and had to play it a certain way. After I didn't get all that, and I said, okay, well, the hell with that. I remember driving to Target because Target, like a few days after launch, Target had, for their holiday sale, Target had $5 or $7 off of Steam gift cards. I remember going to Target that night, taking a wife's credit card, Target card, and getting $100 plus in discounted Steam cards. And one of the games that I bought was Cyberpunk. And I played it twice since then. Since, what was that, November 19th, 2020? I've played it twice since then. Now, I haven't played it forever and ever on Stadia, but I've played it way more times than twice. So, I can wait. And that's not the idealistic way to do, but I'm trying to be reasonable, understanding Stadia's situation, understanding their plight in this situation, but also recognizing that, hey, you made an appeal to a group. Let's not completely abandon them and come up with 60 frames per second modes a year later. That's too long. You know, where's the Grime 4K mode? You know, where's the Young Souls 4K mode? Like, that stuff should be added within 2 weeks to a month maximum. That's where I think Stadia has to get to in 2022. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be disappointed if we don't see more of that, either because of these new tool sets or them deploying more technicians to say, okay, we'll take it from here. Particularly for these AAA games. If we don't start seeing more of these AAA games get a faster build up to these 60 frames per second modes or the 4K modes after retail launch, I'm going to be disappointed. Heavily disappointed, really, I'll be honest with you. And also, they doubled down on the click to play links. They have this new incentive to where if developers do the click to play link promotion, they get incentivized from that. And just to show you the power of, things related to click to play, State Share yielded an 8 times increase in views on shared content. So if there was a State Share link, it was 8 times more likely to be engaged with. All right. So those are the things that I want to see from the platform later on. As far as the dealing with the 60 frames per second stuff, but overall, we cannot ignore that keynote. That keynote really struck away the notion that Stadia doesn't care, and Stadia is not, and they haven't been prioritized by Google or Alphabet. That's all been thrown away just by the whole 85/50 notion alone. You don't do that for a product that you don't see key to your future when you're not doing it for the products that are key to you now. So that means something. That means something. Okay? Kind of like at Xbox, you don't write out the checks that you're doing for a product that you're not leaning on for significant growth. It doesn't make sense. That's why we got to get out of our emotions and we got to look at things from 5,000 feet. All right, the last thing that I want to talk about, and then we're going to wrap things up on this lively episode of Saturday Checkup, is NFTs, the NFT controversy. So here is my understanding of NFTs. NFTs are these individualized cosmetics that there's a market for. You know, you can get a gun with a certain engraving on it, and it's unique. And then you can also use, I guess, crypto mining. I don't know. You can use certain markets to sell that. There's a monetary value added to that item, that digital item, and then you can sell it on the internet or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Sell it to somebody and they got their own specialized whatever. And it's all supposed to be cosmetic. It doesn't, you know, it's not about leveling the character or whatever. It's all cosmetic stuff, right? If that's the gist of it, if the gist of what they're offering, I'm not getting into the, well, it could cause this. I'm saying the gist of what an NFT is, not the cause. If that's the gist of what it is, then okay, I'm channeling my thought process based upon that. So you got to understand it. And here's my thoughts. Now we can talk about cause. If that's what NFTs are, you got to pick your poison. What do I mean by that? People will try to convince you that games are not increasing in cost. I've gone back and forth with YouTubers. You know, there's YouTubers out there. You know, there's no reason why games should cost more. And here's the tricky thing that they do. This is the slick thing that they do. They take the overall cost of every single game being made, and they look at the trajectory of the development of those games over a 15-20 year period. And if you look at the trajectory of every single game that's being made, you will see that gaming costs, when averaging every single game made, have decreased. Here's the problem. We're not talking about mobile games and, you know what I'm saying, and games that take 35, and indie games that have gone through an explosion over the last 10 years. We're not talking about those games. The cost of making those games have to be spliced out, and we're talking about your AA or AAA game development. The cost to make those games have gone up significantly. Respawn have talked about this. Amy Hennig has talked about it. And that's why a lot of people have gone to mobile games and single A, whatever you want to call them, the indie games. Because the blockbuster games, the games that get all the acclaim and all the other stuff, they just cost too much to make. And there's too much risk involved. We're now talking about games being upwards of $500 million to make and market. We're now talking about over 2,000 people being employed to make a video game. A video game that you want me to make that I can beat in 10 hours and then I'm done with. Because you don't want it to be an ongoing thing, right? Under those circumstances, the cost to make these games are not manageable. Don't fall for the okie doke where people, you know, do a mass collection of the mobile game. There's an explosion of those games, and there's more of those games than the AAA and AA games that we're talking about. Make them splice that out. That's trickery and foolery that they're trying to engage in. These games are costing too much to make. And even though the costs are going up significantly, the price that people are being asked for to pay is not. Now, to try to circumvent that, they tried to do something with people that were buying used games. Where they were like, used games were, you know, if you want to play the multiplayer component, you got to pay that $10 because you only got the game from 20. We ain't get none of that 20. We got to get something. And then y'all fought that. And then they tried to do these loot chests or whatever for cosmetic stuff. And y'all fought that. Y'all wanted the government to get involved in that, which is a horrible idea. Because all the government's going to do at the end of the day is allow it to go through, but tax it. And when they tax stuff, it's just going to go up for everybody. And so we all lose on that. And I've even seen where people erroneously fight the fact that, why does my digital copy cost the same as my physical copy? That's horrendous. Let's get our picket signs, our spray cans, and our backpacks and go all up and down the street and proclaim this to be an injustice. Not realizing, not doing your homework and realizing that the reason why digital games and physical games cost the same is, for the most part, because of physical retailers. Huh? Explain that to me, MM2K. Because your physical retailers, your GameStops, your Best Buys, your Walmarts, your Amazons, told publishers that if you make digital games cheaper than physical games, that's going to undercut us selling the physical games, and we're not going to want to do it because it's not going to be worth it, because we're not going to be able to sell your games in bulk. We only get $7 to $8 off of every game that we sell, and it becomes lucrative for us because people buy them in bulk. If people start buying these digital games in bulk because they're cheaper, because you're undercutting us, we don't want nothing to do with the business. We're not going to sell your games at all. That's the main reason why. I mean, there's other things like taxes and stuff like that with digital distribution and stuff like that. But the main reason why is because of physical retailers, period. They don't want to see digital games be cheaper. Do your homework. So because of that, you got people fighting that to their own detriment. They don't even realize it. Y'all gotta pick your poison. And I'd rather have Johnny Juju go ahead and resell the pink hat NFT or the purple fanny pack NFT 17,000 times. I'd rather them do that. And where I don't even have to get involved. And if the developers are happy, and I ain't gotta pay $80, $90 for games, then cool. That issue has been taken care of. Now I got to a discussion with somebody yesterday who's like, well, the compensation ain't gonna go to the devs. That's a completely different conversation about how devs get compensated. Completely different. But ain't no escaping the fact that the publisher, with the power that they have, they gotta get paid. There's no way around that. That's just the way that the business is structured, and it's not going to change overnight. Regardless of how many components are in your backpack or how many cans of spray that you're carrying with you. You can be in La La Land all you want, huffing that spray can. But the fact of the matter is that the publishers got to get paid, or there's not even a conversation. Things belong in different buckets, as I always say. That these are not to be gumboed together in the same pot. Bucket one is, how do we diffuse the publishers raising the price for everybody? Let them play with these NFTs. Or let them do things that for the welcoming. I'd rather have the welcoming minority get involved in this financially than the unwelcoming majority having to pay more for these games. It's just common sense. So again, if I got that right on NFT, that's where we're at. And this protesting wing of the game community is going to cause problems for all of us. I've talked about this for the last few years. You're going to cause problems for all of us because you're not looking at the big picture. Right? Give me 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Let's do something. Let's do something new. Let's try something new. See how you got. I got it. I forgot. I told my wife I'd take care of something now, so I need 5 minutes. So let's take a 5-minute intermission, and then we're going to go to our last. We're going to go to our last thing. So let's let you watch some videos. We'll play some music, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, I'm back. All right, so the last thing that I want to talk about is, let's see here. We're already over 2 hours. Can you believe it? Yeah, well, that extra thing that I threw in there really really took up a little bit more time than I especially. And I hope you guys understand where I was coming from. Where I hope nobody feels like that. I was trying to beat up on a group of gamers because they're unsatisfied with anything, or I was beating up on the social media team. Like they don't know what to do. I just think that all sides would benefit from one side understanding that you shouldn't armchair quarterback of what's going on. Let's talk cause and effect. You don't know what the result is or what it transpired. So demagoguery is never a good thing. And secondly, as far as like the corporate standpoint, not necessarily the social media team. I think if the social media team had complete control over everything that was being said, then, it'd be a completely different story. And we'd probably all be a lot, happier. But from a corporate standpoint, like understand that there's just this wall of expectation from this certain group, and it's really not movable, where they're going to look at every single communication and they're going to say it has to be for us, and you gotta put things in a way to where it never tingles or it doesn't tingle their spidey sense enough. You know what I'm saying? Because they think, because they believe, they live in this belief that every Stadia gamer is like them. And unfortunately, which they got to realize too, that Stadia doesn't talk in riddles. It's either something that you noticed, you pull up your app one day and you say, this is here, or they just come flat out and say it. There is no subliminal talk. And they're just going off of what they see primarily, I guess, with Xbox. And they say, oh, well, that's a subliminal. And they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't do that, but they do it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that shouldn't happen, but it happens. So unfortunately, you always got to be prepared for that to avoid this stuff. It's not fair, it's not right, but it is what it is. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, we went on and on and on about that. I was only going to talk about that like 10 minutes and it turned to a whole hour segment. But nonetheless, it was important. All right. With that being said, the final part that I want to talk about is something that I just came across. I mean, I saw it, but I really didn't pay much attention to it. But man, oh man, this is some serious stuff. And this is right up my alley. Shout out to Chrome Unboxed. They dropped an article about this new T-Mobile debuts new T-Vision streaming device with Google TV, and I'm sold, says the author Gabriel Brangers. And it begins to read off like so. Here, let me make this bigger for the people in the back. It says, until Google officially launched the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro, the Chromecast with Google TV was arguably the best piece of hardware to come out of Mountain View over the past couple of years. And this audio is up there, but the Chromecast is the most versatile and practical made by Google device in recent years. We use the Chromecast with Google TV every day in our home and only have two real complaints about Google's tiny streamer. First and foremost, the Chromecast with Google TV has a scant 8 gigabytes of memory, 4 gigabytes of which are used by the operating system pre-installed software. That leaves very little room for the ever-growing number of streaming apps that are hitting the market. My other dislike of the Chromecast is a small nit, but it's annoying enough for me to mention it. The remote. The tiny pill-shaped clicker is slippery In my larger than average hands, frequently projected to the floor because it's easy to squeeze like a tomato seed. Anyways, that's just me. Since the debut of Google's latest Chromecast, Android TV have enjoyed a software update that gave Android TV a look and feel that is on par with Google TV. For the reason the O&N Android TV from Walmart has become our favorite streaming stick for a couple of reasons. They talk about the low price of $19.98. All that said, a new streaming device has just surfaced, of all places, T-Mobile, and this 4K dongle is the first on the market outside of Google's Chromecast that actually is powered by Google TV, as announced by SCI Robotics via Twitter. The new T-Vision Hub from T-Mobile features the newer Amlogic S905Y4 and comes out of the box with Android 11. This is fairly ironic as Google's Chromecast is still rocking Android TV OS 10. And for those that don't know what S905Y4, that is the AV1 codec. So it does AV1 decoding out of the box. The aforementioned, and they talk about it, is a newer SoC that the one found in the Google TV Chromecast, which is hopefully result in smoother performance when navigating the interface. It is unclear how much storage the device has, but the landing page shows a decent sized remote with dedicated buttons for the assistant, Netflix, YouTube, and power and input buttons specifically for your television. Additionally, T-Mobile's new streaming comes bearing an inbuilt Ethernet port, which means you don't have to worry about dropping your Wi-Fi signal. And all this is coming at $49.99. Yeah, boy, that's right up my alley. I love the Google TV. I love the Google TV. It's great. But this person is absolutely right. The little space that it has, that really, to me, that's the only thing that how can I say this? That's the only thing that Google did that really didn't send them over with the Google TV. Like, 'cause I'm gonna be honest with you. It's completely removed the need for me to have a Fire TV, except for the fact that the Fire TV has way more space on it. And I feel Google did this for the dongle to come in at a respectable price and have the capabilities that it has. I get it. Google's not the biggest on doing things like Amazon and creating, situations where, they lose money just to get saturation. And they're not really as hardware bound as Amazon is. I get it. And I think what Google did as well is they looked at probably data analytics and they said our average consumer only uses about XYZ apps anyway. The accumulation of the data, because they're a data company and they're Google, they get all the information themselves. They know how much data is being, and the accumulation of that data equals da 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 da. And I think that line of thinking is kind of what always puts Google in a situation where they may do things economically, but they just fall just a little short of giving you enough abundance. Like they got it. That thing needed at least 2 to 3 more gigs. If it had 2 to 3 more gigs in it, it would still be lower than usual, but then I feel like it would be workable. But yeah, it needed 2 to 3 more gigs of space in there. I don't like the remote either. I'm not a big fan of the Google TV remote. I don't like it. I don't get the point of super small remotes. They get lost. It just doesn't make any sense to me, especially when you have a remote that requires you to press the button. It's not like a Fire Stick Cube where you can say, "Hey Google," you know, like with the Fire Stick Cube, you can say, Fire TV Cube, you can say, "Hey Alexa," like I can say it right now and say, "Alexa, turn my TV off." It's not, you know, so losing a remote is a big deal, and it is easy to lose that remote. I don't like the design of it's slippery. You know, like make it white, but make it gritty where it's not slip. You know what I mean? Like it slips and squeezes and wet. You'll find that remote wedged in the craziest places at times. And you never knew that it fell on the floor because it's so damn slippery. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. But overall, it's still a great device. It really takes precedent over my Fire TV, except for I have certain applications that I have on my Fire TV because there's not enough space on the Google TV, and I don't want to uninstall and reinstall. So when I use those applications, those larger applications, then I got to go to the Fire TV. You know what I mean? But this thing, if it not only has an Ethernet port, which I had to go spend $14 to get an Ethernet port, but if this has the Ethernet port built in and more space on it, well, the actual CCU, the Chromecast Ultra itself, becomes obsolete. I mean, unless you're looking for a Wi-Fi travel device, I'm buying this. You know what I'm saying? Unless this thing is defective, unless it has like cheaper parts in it to where it creates bottlenecks, this sounds like a dream. Now the thing is if you get on T-Mobile's service, which is I forgot what it's called there, you get the thing for free. But if you want to buy the device outright, it's going to be $50. That's not bad, especially if it has more space on it. So I'm very interested to see, and what people are assuming is that it does have more space for the simple fact that they got all these buttons on it. It's got T-Mobile thing, Netflix, and YouTube on it, T-Vision. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I want that. I want that. So, yeah, I'm gonna be on the market picking that thing up ASAP. And I'm also curious to see. Don't tell nobody I told you this. I'm also curious to see how easy it will be to scramble the signal. What do I mean by that? Currently, the HDCP component on the Google devices are unbelievable. Like, I can record video off my CCU and enhance it off my old school CCU. You know what I mean? But I got to go through a ridiculous regimen in order to do that. The Google TV, Chromecast with Google TV, forget it. Forget it. I can't get past the HDCP. It just can't be done. I don't know. There might be a way, I don't know of it. But if this thing, I'm able to get past the HDCP on that, yeah, baby. There we go. Because Stadia app works well on the Google TV, Chromecast with Google TV. If it works just as well as that, and I get the extra storage, there we go. Like I'm gonna buy, like the Google TV. What I might do is I got an old Chromecast Ultra in the bedroom. That automatically gets replaced, with this in case I want to play Stadia in the bedroom. And then I would buy a couple of these. I would buy one for in here, and I would buy another one for downstairs. Yeah, that would be awesome. But yeah, to me, it makes it obsolete. What are you guys thinking? Let me know in the comment section what y'all think about this. I'm very excited and I can't wait to get my hands on this thing. And of course, after we get our hands on it, we'll let you know how it works. Yeah, I'm sold too, brother. I'm sold too. All right, and with that said, that is it for this episode of Saturday Checkup. Went over 23 minutes, but hopefully, again, just to recap everything that we talked about. We talked about the community convo in some spots where I think we can learn some things. Definitely by watching that documentary, episode 3 particularly. Yeah. Talked about Awesome Creeds, Awesome Defense, gave a little bit of background on that. The Stadia KeyNote revisit, to help guide some conversations if need be. The NFT controversy we talked about. And then the T-Mobile thing, which I forgot to add here, the T-Mobile topic piece, which really has me excited. So again, I want to thank everybody for listening. We appreciate all of y'all and love all of y'all. We'll be back next Saturday, maybe with a guest, maybe with just more conversation. And we're doing this at least for the end of the year. Stay tuned to this channel. I'm thinking about some things. I really am. I don't want to say too much right now. But I want to say that the last month has really been an eye-opener for me. It really has been. And that's probably why I was so long-winded in talking about this stuff earlier today. When I was talking about the community convo. I'm really going through a thought process right now, y'all. I can't lie. And it's really making me feel like that there has to be systemic change to a lot of things that are being done here. For the betterment of what we're trying to accomplish. Yeah, we might have to uproot some things and completely do some different stuff here because times are strange now. It's a lot different from when I first got here. Again, using the whole lighthouse scenario, we were all, everybody, look, I've had, from my very first guest that I've had on SSC Podcast to more recently, the new panel where we're a lot more optimistic. I mean, people's opinions range from a variety of things. That's not the issue. The issue was at the end of the day, we were always trying to, it was well intended, and what we were trying to do was create a scenario or create a situation where people who, again, could be satisfied by the platform, whether tremendously or in some fashion, or those that are interested to have questions answered, that we provided that platform and they can do that in comfortability and ease without being targeted or ridiculed or trolled. We were always trying to provide that atmosphere, and it's going a certain way. And divisions happen. It's not too concerning about that, but it's the lengths that all these sides are willing to go in order to get their point across. It was never about the fight. The fight, again, was just a byproduct of us saying, hey, look, whenever toxic and unfactual things were thrown, towards people gathering towards the lighthouse, we had our protectors out there trying to safeguard people traveling there. That was just a byproduct of that. That was not the main goal. Now it's become the main goal, and it's just there's some evaluation that has to be done, But we'll talk about that when we get to that point. For the rest of the year, we're going to keep things jolly, though. With that said, appreciate, love everybody. Thank you so much. Until next time, have a wonderful gaming day. Peace.